As you know, World War II to Cold War was arguably the golden age of tanks, with light, medium, heavy, and super heavy tanks. But today, we're not focused on tanks. We're focused on, you read the title, the tank destroyers. Today, we'll focus on three primary countries: the US, the USSR, and Germany. So let's start with the over-engineering people themselves, Germany. Germany made overall 6 tank destroyer types in total, being the Martyrs 1 and 2, Hetzer, or Jagdpanther 38T, Jagdpanther 4, Jagdpanther, Jagdtiger, and the Ferdinand. But were they any good? The first German tank destroyer was the Panzerjäger 1, so technically I kind of listed short of tank destroyer types from Germany. It was built between 1940 and 1941 to counter heavily armored French tanks such as the Char B1. They were made by removing the Panzer I Alpha B turret and mounting the 4.7cm PaK-T anti-tank gun. Until 1943, it was used in North Africa, France, and some Eastern Front campaigns like Operation Barbarossa and Battle for Rostov-on-Don. Until 1944, this is when all the famous tank destroyers started appearing, such as the aforementioned Hetzer, Jagdpanther, and Jagdtiger, all being different in their own right. The Hetzer was a light armored tank destroyer replacing the Stug after multitudes of Stug factories were bombed. Its frontal armor would be enough to stop tank rounds, however the size would only stop small arms fire. The Jagdpanther was more heavily armored and built upon the Panther chassis and would use the stronger 8.8cm PaK 43-3 L71 gun, or Long 88, compared to the Hetzer's 7.5cm PaK 39 L48 gun. Onto the heaviest of them all, the Jagdtiger Elephant/Ferdinand. The Ferdinand was built the earliest in 1943, which is kind of shocking, but I digress. It was built upon Ferdinand Porsche's massively failed Tiger 1 chassis after he got cocky and ordered like 100 of them. The gun would be stored in the back and would use the 8.8cm PaK 43-2 L71 gun, so similar to the Jagdpanther. The Jagdtiger was the heaviest armored fighting vehicle in World War II to see service, and was built upon the Tiger 2 chassis. It would feature very heavy armor, and would utilize the 12.8cm PaK 44 L55 gun. So on paper, all German tank destroyers seemed very good. There was one slight issue. The Hetzer had a gun offset to the right, which was effective for low profile and ambush. The problem was that it was rarely poorly balanced, and his drive sprocket transmission and final drive would get damaged significantly. The Jagdpanther would suffer final drive failures due to weight. I really wonder what other tanks suffered that. For the Jagdpanther, that was kind of it. A non-working final drive. The problem? You need a working final drive to f***ing fight. Anyway, I'm sidetracking a bit. The issues with the Elephant, it weighed a whopping 69 tons. That's 10 to 12 adult elephants. This meant it frequently just broke down and killed itself, and it was basically unrecoverable. Side note, the older model was called the Ferdinand and the newer models were the Elephants, but I said Elephant more since I was more used to it. Another con was that the Ferdinand in fact had no anti-infantry gun, but the Elephant does, utilizing the MG34. So, based on the other tank destroyer issues, what do you think the Jagdtiger had? If you said weight and transmission issues, you'd be f***ing correct. It was fuel hungry, too damn heavy, used the same engine as the lighter Tiger 2 and Panther tank, and had an overloaded drivetrain. So yes, while tank destroyers like the Jagdpanther and arguably maybe the Hetzer was good, they all suffered the same issue. Weight. Another side note is that the Sturmgeschütz doesn't count as a tank destroyer. That was used as an assault gun. Onto the USSR, the first dedicated tank destroyer would be made in 1943 with the Su-85. It was based on the world-renowned T-34 chassis and would use the 85mm D5T gun. It was mainly made to counter the most feared tank of World War II, the goddamn Tiger! Now, before anyone argues, I know the Su-152 exists, but the thing is, it was a fortification destroyer, so basically an artillery vehicle or assault gun. Though you can also argue it was a good tank destroyer as a stopgap. In 1944, the Su-85 would be upgraded to the Su-100, which would utilize the 100mm D-10S anti-tank gun, able to penetrate 200mm of armor. It featured a little bit of sloped armor, which was basically the Soviet Union armor's pixie dust. Now, due to the simple design of these tank destroyers, they were quite reliable, but they had their own set of issues, one of which was how uncomfortable it was. Because it's the Soviet Union, they focused more on firepower and armor rather than the crew even liking the damn thing. They were incredibly cramped, and not to mention, some very poor vision. The vision problem was sorta kinda fixed with the commander's cupola on the Su-100, but it was a bit worse than the German. They were also extremely slow and less maneuverable, but it's a casemate, I don't know what you want from it. You can kind of see a match between Germany and USSR. Both used casemate tanks for low visibility. Although I think the Jagdtiger and Elephant are pretty big-ass targets. Ah, yes. America. Land of the free and some absolutely bullshit healthcare and someone getting its own F-15s down by Kuwait. World War II America had a slightly different doctrine for tank destroyers. America's version of tank destroyers would chalk up to shoot, boom, ditch, aka fire and get the fuck out of there. This means that America prioritized speed and maneuverability rather than heavy armor. The first TD from the US was the M10 gun motor carriage, entering production in September 1942. It was based on the very reliable M4 chassis and would feature a powerful 3-inch M7 gun, which was capable of defeating most of the German armor at the time. Though, as you can see in my gameplay, it was a bit weird. It had no roof. Removal of the roof reduced its own weight, therefore more speed, which is what the USA wanted. Although crews like the M10, they hated how exposed they were to mortar and sniper fire, making makeshift roofs themselves. This would be a common trend for even the M18 and M36. In 1943, Buick would make the M18 Hellcat, which also featured an M76mm gun. However, it would not use the M7 like the M10. In fact, it used the M1 series of cannons. And no, it didn't use an Abrams tank as a gun. That's kind of a funny image, though. Crews didn't like it initially because they thought it could be used like a Sherman. Later on, they did use it like it was intended, and it performed phenomenally, getting up to a 2.4 to 1 kill to death ratio. It performed especially well in the Pacific, as the open top allowed its crew to hear through the dense-ass jungles without some Japanese dude randomly firing at it. The M36 would be released in 1944 and was built upon the M3, M4A3, and M10 hull. It would feature a 90mm M3 gun, and like always, lightly armored. You see a common thing in the fact that the American TDs all had no roof and provided an arcuately mounted 50 caliber M2 HB gun on the back of the turrets for the anti-air. So which country had the best tank destroyers? Germany overall had the best superior firepower and armor. USSR also had superior firepower and armor with better reliability. America had superior speed, firepower, and reliability and vision at the cost of some armor. Germany would be counted out as reliability issues are way too significant. So between the USSR and USA, who wins? I personally give it to America. The use of a turret with better speed and vision gives it the best overall chance over the SU series of tank destroyers. But that's my opinion, so what do you guys think? Do you think I gave Germany an unfair loss, or that the Soviet Union's armor was better than the American speed? I've been Ghosty, and you've been ghosted.